And with that one word answer, they will also help you reduce themselves. How does AI make you feel in one word?
How does AI make me feel? I think I'm inspired.
Okay. And your introduction, please?
Yep, my introduction. I'm the founder and chairman of Saigon AI. We're an AI consulting agency, and we help our customers more about designing and supporting automation products with AI. We help companies to support their technology.
Shalu?
I am excited about not knowing where it will take us, but knowing that it will be a good place. I'm the co-founder of Gimmefy.ai. We're building the world's smartest marketing platform. It's a marriage between the best of AI and the best of human learning and wisdom. And we're based in Singapore. We have presence in Southeast Asia, Middle East, and the US.
Lan?
I feel enlightened with AI. I'm the founder and CEO of Cocafe Technology. We are a digital technology firm, provide solutions for global leading brands, especially in luxury industry and also multinational brands. So we have headquarters in Beijing and Shanghai in China. We also have operations in North America and the Middle East.
So pretty wide perspective from people who are helping build the technology, build the capabilities, if you will, and helping us structure as an industry what we believe is going to be a true embodiment of what I earlier spoke about, the general transformation of the industry. So let me kick off this discussion from a leadership perspective. How do you foresee, and Lan, I'll come to you first, because China, or whatever we've seen and heard over the last 20 years, has been at the forefront of a lot of this innovation and transformation. From your perspective, how does leadership within organizations, within your organization, but the organizations around, how do they embody this transformation? And anything that you would like to share from a China perspective, which is very relevant in India.
I believe in China, the leaders are quite anxious and excited at the same time with the revolutionary of AI. So started from about 3 years ago, all business leaders, they talk about AI, they invest in AI. And now the Chinese AI market is very competitive. A lot of startups and also the tech giants, they invest in billions of dollars in AI. And every company, no matter it's state-owned enterprises or it's private, no matter it's a small startup or it's already established, they must have some people talk or do projects with AI. Otherwise, they will feel like they will be left behind. So China, I think, if you go to China, you can see everything, including the government policies and regulatory frameworks. AI is a central topic.
Shalu, from your perspective, how does leadership view AI?
I think leadership is excited, but they're also mostly on the wrong side of 50. And I say that in a practical sense because like in my own company, like most of us are in the late 30s, late 40s. We've just hired a really smart young person in her early 20s. And she's giving us ideas and thoughts that are making us think. So I think that leaders are excited, but they're not equipped to be able to embrace this revolution.
Well, I agree with exactly what you said. I think a lot of leaders are not as prepared to fully understand the technology. The young generation are the ones that like to try, but they don't have the discipline and the business acumen behind it to know and how to measure results. And so that makes it challenging, I think, in Vietnam, because people are excited about new, but difficult to apply repetitive processes to a meaningful, stable growth pattern.
And it's I started with this question primarily because there are certain elements of business which is either top down or bottom down. And in a personal environment, all of us in the room, at a personal level, do dabble with AI. I believe that you all do. But from a governance perspective, from an organization perspective, there's a gap. There's a gap on capabilities, there's a gap on understanding, and there's a gap of adoption. And adoption at a personal level becomes very easy. You open openai.com and there you go. But in an organization structure, it's not that easy. And that's why it is important to see how leaders, and these are three service providers, if you will, who are actually working with the leaders where the adoption needs to happen. So that leads me to my next question is, from a personal to corporate, personal to business, what is that transition? What needs to happen for the adoption at a personal level, which is personal productivity, and we were talking about it earlier, to a corporate environment? And how do you close that gap? May I come to you?
Sure. I think the first thing to be really clear about is that personal productivity tools, which is something you might use at home or you might use as part of your responsibility at work, is something like a ChatGPT or an image generator, things that you use to make your job productivity better, faster, as opposed to a company's product or an automation or a service that you provide to other people that has power as an IT solution powered by AI. The difference is quite substantial. Now, for personal productivity tools to become meaningful in a business context, there needs to be some accountability and productivity. You can imagine that if I have a responsibility to write a feature article, and I do it with ChatGPT, but maybe my manager doesn't even know about it, then all of a sudden we're missing key important issues, which is who's reviewing it. If a human wrote it, then there's already at least a mental review. But if it's generated, then there might be errors. Who's doing the review? Who's doing the editorial? That process of review and Q&A is very different if it's AI generated. And so this is probably one of the first important points about that transition to using personal tools.
Shalu, I'll come to you next. In terms of this closing of this gap, a product like yours or any other tool that's available, how easy is it for an adoption in a corporate environment? How does that gap get closed? When at MMA, if I'm going to use that, there's a team, there's a structure, there's the workforce, and there's the leadership. How do you manage to close that gap, and what should be the key nugget to help close that gap?
I think it's a great question with lots of practical value here. I believe that work needs to happen at both ends of it. You need to have your teams who are actually doing the work start dabbling with the tools, start running the pilots, start learning from them. At the same time, you need to have a senior leadership who helps to start building on the infrastructure, the framework, the policies at the same time. You cannot wait to build the policies to start dabbling, and you cannot only keep dabbling and not kind of bring it back into systems and structures. We found that the most effective implementation and the most value that gets created is when both of these things are happening at the same time within organizations, and that's definitely, I think, the way to go. From a practical point of view, like personal tools like ChatGPT, etc., great to get started with content, but as marketers, we start quickly realizing that, hey, there's a big gap between writing interesting Instagram posts, but making sure that it is in line with our brand voice, in line with our landscape. It understands who our competitors are, it understands who our audience is, it talks in the way that we want to talk. It to kind of take away the whole prompt frustration to think and talk so there's a big gap from personal usage to the others, but the best way is to start on both sides, dabble and build the infrastructure at the same time.
Lan, you work with a lot of luxury brands, and Lan's going to present in the afternoon showcase on some of the great work that's been done on AI in China, and we're going to talk about a lot of use cases there with luxury brands. But in your experience, when you actually do work with them, how does that work from a leadership perspective to actually get the work done to actually execution of the work? Is there a difference between the two?
I would say for multinational brands, they are quite cautious in the application of AI in marketing because they have these global mandates and also different regulatory frameworks in different countries, and they have to reach some universal level of agreement before they can start to execute. So the marketing materials we produce on these global brands is usually in the e-commerce arena. And it's for the 3D presentation of 3D assets of merchandising, and they can be utilized globally. And if more creative contents, I think it's quite important that you work with at the leadership level and you make sure to do it across different departments. It's not only the marketing director, you also need to talk to the legal director, you also need to align with the country manager, and also in the implementation level, it's quite important that everybody in the task force, they are clear with the objectives. Because AI is not a magic tool to solve everything. You cannot achieve all the effects or all the results you want to achieve only plus AI. There's no such magic tool. So you have to align the awareness of objectives.
So it's interesting you said AI is not a magic tool, but there are people who are working on it. The people who need to actually get the work done from AI. AI doesn't do it itself, right? So from that perspective, let me stick with you, what is the role of a leadership when it comes to talent, when it comes to the workforce? You spoke about governance and ethical guidance, but it is people, it's the human. So what's the connection and how does that translate? What's the advice that you would give if you were talking to a marketeer of how to structure this?
I would always suggest the leader to start from him or herself, and also to deliver the right message to the workforce. One common mistake we see is that when the leader started talking about AI, they start with reducing costs. They start with cutting the workforce. And this will create anxiety and even resistance among the people you work with. Then they may stop or they may hinder the execution of the project. So it's very important that you start from yourself, you understand the limitations and also the opportunities of AI. Then you start to improve your team. You start to, maybe you invite some new talent to join the team. Maybe you partner with outside consultancies, but you definitely need to empower your team before you can start a successful project.
Andrew, Vietnam has its own dynamics, its own culture and workforce-related challenges. From your perspective, is it similar to the adoption that comes top-down, or is it more mandatory for the workforce to understand the advantages and then embrace AI?
I think that's a very good question. I think it requires both, like we've heard a couple of times. The leadership has to understand the expectation, healthy expectation of what AI's role is and what it can do, how it can help. What is the realistic expectation that a human plus some AI tools for efficiency, what does that look like? And the same thing is, I think, the culture of the company from the bottom up as well. People need to be comfortable that they're allowed to learn and experiment new culture with new technology, and that sometimes making mistakes or having some result that is not quite as good is a part of a journey, rather than a warning sign that maybe your job could be eliminated, right? There needs to be some grace as part of the culture, that you want people to be curious. You want people to say, oh, I found a new tool, let me talk to my manager about how this could be useful, rather than just waiting for management to dictate the rules about how it should be used.
So I do want to reiterate something from my own presentation. I don't think so the jobs are at stake. The jobs will change. And if there's anything we've learned with the earlier evolution of technology or electricity, internet, as I spoke about. There is a new way of doing things. Shalu, I'm coming to you. Lan said something very interesting. People start with AI will help reduce costs. But the fact is, if you actually want to implement AI, it's very expensive. It's not cheap. So, how does that balance out? When you say we are going to use AI to reduce costs, if you actually do it and integrate it across the organization, it comes at a cost.
It's a great way to look at it, Rohit. I would feel that it's almost like, when you make a decision to go to college or do an MBA or do some studies, and then you kind of look at the returns and the ROIs and the calculations kind of in a longer term perspective. It's a bit like that. It's a no-brainer that this will help us and this will help us be more effective. But I think the decisions on ROI, the decisions on, kind of have to wait a bit. You kind of need to get into it, learn, keep adapting, keep tweaking, and keep going. And also, like, a slightly different perspective on the jobs thing. Like, I do feel that, from a leadership perspective, there is also some honesty needed in the sense that a lot of jobs will go. That is the truth. A lot of jobs of people who create mid-level quality kind of, content and writing and social content and, graphics and visuals are going to go, absolutely. But as Rohit said, there will be new things as well, and we've already experienced it. Like, a 10-person content team gets cut down to 4 people, but then the other people are then, put on projects to revamp the website that has been waiting for a very long time, or to work on some search thing, etc. So yes, it's going to get reallocated, but on the whole, a lot of jobs are going to go. So I think some honesty from the leadership is also going to be good.
So,
Yeah, add one thing to this. There was an article that came out just in the last 2 months, I believe, that the leading technology companies and corporations in the USA are now looking less at university, like high-quality universities, and more about practical skills in AI. And the comment I want to make about this is I think what you're saying is absolutely right. I believe the only reason somebody should fear about a job being eliminated is if they are unwilling to adapt, to learn the new technology. I think, is there a fear? Well, I think if you're unwilling, then I think there is a fear of elimination or being removed. But I think if you're willing to learn technology, the reallocation of work is much, much more realistic.
I'm a little disappointed. We are not having any arguments here. I would have wanted some argument not to agree to each other. But towards the close of this panel, I do want to ask one pertinent question. One word, what you should not be doing when you're thinking of it. One word.
Do not make assumptions about what AI can be.
Shalu?
Do not wait for all the trucks to be in line. Get started.
Mất cái led công việc rồi. Bây giờ
Do not overestimate the results.
chuyển
Assumption, don't assume, don't wait, and don't overexpect. So those are 3 things. And I think it's important whenever we are growing, whenever we are learning, whenever we are adapting. It's really important to know what are the limitations. If you have the right expectations, I think the goal setting is right. And therefore it's very important as marketers, as business leaders, to know those limitations. I feel it may be not perceived as the great thing to talk about what not to do, but it's also important because, as they say, it's very important to learn to say no, because otherwise you will end up saying yes and doing everything that you can't do. So, what is that one thing that you should do?
If you're building a product using AI, not personal productivity, but if you're building a product, you should write a job description for your AI so that you know the details of requirements and how you measure the results.
Say start on both ends. Start ground level, ground up, run some pilots. At the same time, start building the policies and the infra. Don't wait for either of them. Start both at the same time and tag team and kind of evolve it together.
Lan?
Start from the leadership level. Start from yourself.
Start from yourself. So, the last question for the panel, and this is personal. What's your best use case for AI? Personal, not professional.
I think maybe I'm biased because I'm a technical person and I build AI for myself. I have a personal digital assistant that can talk about scheduling, can talk about my AI research, and I can ask questions by voice. So this is the best reward is the assistant that is learning every day from my own queries and getting smarter about what I need.
Great. Can I have that?
Yeah, it's not too expensive.
Okay. Shalu.
Similar, on our platform Gimmefy.ai, we have a section for creating assistants, and I have an assistant for myself, which I use for everything, like from social media to emails to proposals to like, and it keeps getting better because we keep feeding it more and more information. So I kind of, use what we built and created, and I think that's what I do.
Huh?
I have a digital avatar of myself, and it is used for short videos, photo casting, and live streaming. So it saves a lot of time for myself.
Okay, great. On that note, thank you. You've been a great panel. Thank you for your time. And I hope the audience took some key nuggets on how you need to think of adoption from a leadership perspective, but also keeping in mind the human element, the talent, the capabilities within the organization. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And let's say that because we already have a very specific gift from MMA, so Mr. Rohit